Hello everybody, Carl Keister here with ClearSurf Financial Education, and today I'm going to be discussing Social Security. There's been some talk while the candidates were running for presidency this year about what to do with Social Security. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history, not a whole lot, but more importantly about the latest news release from Social Security, which says when it's going to run out. And then also talk about the fact that it's not providing as much income for folks that are already using it. So three really important topics that I want to get into. But first of all, I'll start with what is Social Security. So it was really signed by FDR in helping people out after the Great Depression. There was a time where people were coming off the farms and got into the industrialized world. And at that point in time, those that were 65 or older had no way to take care of themselves. So they saw a need for this program, and it was first started back in the 30s after the Great Depression, actually. So what I want to do is look at what it was and where it's going now. So it was never really intended to be a retirement plan for people. It was intended to help subsidize your income. If you look at the Social Security website today, they'll tell you that it's really only intended to replace maybe 30 to 40% of your income. As companies got away from funding pensions, more of the burden is on the taxpayer to save for your own retirement. Now, that's something that's really not happening as we can only foresee by all the debt out there and the fact that the account balances for people that are in their 50s and even getting closer to retirement are not anywhere near where they need to be. So I want to first look at the Social Security Administration release here. This release is dated April 22nd of 2020, and this is based on last year's number. This does not take into effect that the COVID-19 pandemic, which may make the fund run out of money even sooner. So what this says is it thought it was going to be depleted in 2034. And at that point in time, about 79% of scheduled benefits would be paid out if Congress does nothing. So if they do nothing, we're inside now. We're inside about 13 years until you can expect 79, call it 80% of what you thought you were going to get. There's $3 trillion, just about $3 trillion in there going into 2020. Now, the problem is with the pandemic is with jobs being lost, less money is being paid in, and also bond rates are at all-time lows. So by law, that fund cannot be invested in the stock market. So those Social Security funds are being invested in bonds, some of the most protected bonds there are, but nonetheless, it's a very low yielding bond. So last year in 2019, the fund increased by $2.5 billion to up to $2.9 trillion is what was in there. Now, next year, 2021, is the first year that the Social Security Administration mentions on here that they expect money going out to be more than money coming in. So the money being paid into the fund plus the interest that it's earning on the bonds is not going to be enough for the first time since 1982. So these are things you want to think about when you're planning for retirement, because they're printing this out. Not a lot of attention is being paid to this, but they're basically telling you if nothing changes, it's not going to be able to pay you anywhere near what you thought you were going to get, even if it's there. So it's just something to keep in mind. Also, I want to look at the projections here. So Wharton School of Business, they ran their own projections. And I just want to pull down the numbers here. So they were saying it depends on whether it's a V-shaped recovery or a U-shaped recovery. A V-shaped recovery, they're thinking at 2034 versus 2035. But if it's a U-shaped recovery, they're thinking actually 2032. That would shave 2 to 3 years, depending on what kind of recovery we get, off of when the funds are expected to run out. So these are things, when you're planning for your retirement, you want to bear in mind, because this is going to be huge. And I think during Joe Biden's administration, something has to be addressed here. I mean, they've been kicking this can down the road for a long time. Oddly enough, thinking back to whenever Bill Clinton was in office in the 90s, he had proposed maybe putting the money into a stock market type of fund versus a bond fund. Now, in hindsight, they didn't want to risk all that money at the time, but in hindsight, where the market is today versus the mid-1990s, there would be a lot more than $3 trillion sitting there to pay benefits, which would have been genius. But obviously, hindsight is always 20/20. But it's just scary to think about the fact that this is going to run out. We're paying into it. You know, those baby boomers have paid into it. They're going to be collecting. A lot of them should be pretty secure. My generation, you know, right about the time I'm supposed to be able to collect it is when it's going to be out of money. And I'm looking at 80% of what I thought I was going to get. So definitely think about putting more money of yours away and not banking on Social Security, because who knows what's going to happen. Now, things could change. I did read up a little bit. There's been talk for years now about more of a universal type plan. And I wanted to bring this to you because I think a lot of this will get more and more play with the Democrats going in office. But there's a couple out there. Universal Social Security has been talked about for a while, where everybody gets the same amount no matter what you paid into it. So that's a little bit more on the Democratic lines, or even the socialism lines, where everybody gets the same thing regardless of how you paid into it. Right now, it's based on what you paid into it. The average check, by the way, is about $1,500. But okay, I want to mention that if you take Social Security at age 62, it's going to be between 70 and 75% of full benefits. Now, if you were born between 1943 and 54, it's age 66. And then a month or two is added for those people born between 55 and 60. It tiers out by the month. But then anybody born in 1960 or after, it's 67 years of age. Now, you want to keep in mind, if once you get past that full retirement age, whatever yours may be, every year you wait to take Social Security, you get an 8% bonus added on there. So that can definitely add up to some extra money in retirement. So it depends on your situation, but I just wanted to add that in there. So, you know, right now how it's taken care of is you pay 6.2% of your W-2 wages go automatically withheld into the Social Security fund. Your employer pays 6.2%. Now this is on up to, in 2019, $137,700. I think next year it's going to 142. Don't quote me on that. 142, 143. And so basically you're paying in 12.4% of wages into this fund, but the amount of people taking it is just going to overwhelm this over the next decade or two. So something has to be done. So here are some ideas that they could do. Number one, increase payroll taxes. That's the most obvious. You increase payroll taxes so that it doesn't run out of money as quickly. Also, Joe Biden did run on this, and that is increase the wage base that it's paid on. So instead of capping it at 137 or next year 142, he wants to tax it up to, I think, $400,000. So that's going to raise money as well. They also talked about a flat reduction in benefits. So there could just be capping it flat on top. And also the old thing is that they've done in the past is raising the retirement age. So that could be done. But either way, I just wanted to reiterate, this is the Social Security Administration saying, this is last year projection, pre-COVID, 2035, they only expect to pay out 79% of benefits. And then Wharton says with the COVID implications in there, it could shave another 2 to 3 years off of there. So now getting back to the third and final really important topic is, even without the funds running out of money or not collecting as much interest as it used to, it's just not keeping up with inflation. So I found an article here that I thought was pretty interesting. So if you collected Social Security in 2000 versus 2020, you basically, your Social Security benefits have lost 30% of their purchasing power. They have not kept up with inflation. Now what this means is cost of living, some years we get it, some years they don't. Retirees get it, I should say. Some years they get it, some they don't. So that has not kept up. So for example, in 2000, the average Social Security check, believe it or not, was $816. And just with the COLAs, that moved up to $1,246 a month. $1,246 a month. In order to keep up with inflation, it should have been $1,626. So those people that have been collecting for 20 years now, that means they're shy $380 a month, just keeping up with inflation. So again, important, and I can go through a slide here, but some of the biggest things obviously are healthcare. That's why it was debated so much during the election. So from 2000 to 2020, prescription drug out of pocket up 252%. Medicare Part B up 218%. Homeowners insurance, because all the disasters have been happening, up 174%. Food, veterinarian services, Medigap up 148%. It just goes on and on. So you can see all these costs going up anywhere from 120 up to 252% higher. You know, it's not surprising that people living on Social Security are having a hard time getting by, especially during this pandemic. And I think this is also why you're seeing more people in food lines because of what's going on, because the system is already under pressure as it is. So I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know what the answer is going to be. I just know that the government's going to have to finally, they're going to have to deal with this. They can't keep looking the other way on this because you've got people have been on it for a long time. People are living longer, and it's just not keeping up. The cost of living is just not there. So with that being said, I'm not going to belabor it much longer, but I just wanted to point out what's going on today, let you know that you do need to save. If you decide to take Social Security early, it is going to be 75 to 80% of what you were expecting. But if you don't have longevity in your family or you're not healthy, you might want to take it early and invest the money if you don't need it. You don't have to, spend it. You can, of course, invest it. And you investing it might grow a lot more than the government, where it's sitting in a bond fund getting 1 or 2% right now, if we're lucky. So anyway, keep it in mind. Carl Keister, ClearSurf Financial Education. And I have created a course down below. There are links, and you might want to go check that out. I go into budgeting. I talk about when to take retirement. I go into much more detail based on your age and the ramifications of taking it early. Talk about retirement planning, estate planning, and so forth. So that's in the links down below. So go check it out. And until next time, stay focused and stay in the market. And we'll see you then. Take care.